In the year 2525, if man is still alive. You're, that wasn't really a gigantic hit, so you have to be pretty old to remember that one. But I'm only 52, and the concept of it being 2020, you know, Space Odyssey 2001, you remember all these things. It's like if you're gonna set like something in the future, make it the distant future, okay? Um, I was trying to think of like George Orwell's 1984. That kind of worked because in 1984 we had a president that was seeking a third term, and of course, 1984 was about autocracy and totalitarian rule and stuff. And we have a president that's like wanting to repeal an act limiting the amount of terms a president can have. And then, just a few years later, we have the Patriot Act, um, with the government allowed more intrusion into our personal lives and stuff. So that kind of worked out, But usually, if you want to set a science fiction type dystopia type of thing, you want to set it like far off into the future. Like I can't, obviously I don't research these. These are all uh, spontaneous. But like for Blade Runner, where they have flying cars, or other movies where they have, flying cars and multi-tiered highways of cars flying around and stuff. I bet you some of them are like set in the year 1999 or something like that. Um, yeah, but anyways, 1984. Getting back to that, it's like it kind of worked out as far as like his timeline, um, because he wrote the. Oh, well, my memory's not good. I haven't eaten this morning and I've been up a while, so my mind's not likely to be sharp. And plus, I already used a lot of my mental energy doing a video about something that happened last night. So this is really going to be a weird piece of work because originally I was like, I got off the phone and I was upset and I'm like, I needed to vent and rant about the situation. And I was like, no, I'm not going to put that up. And I like rewatched it and trimmed it down to 16 minutes. And I'm like, I can put that up. But I did a video this morning where I covered a lot of the material from last night and from New Year's Eve incident. And, so there'll have to probably be some editing involved. And it's going to be it's going to be a bumpy ride, folks. No, it's just, yeah. Um, but what it's really about, what the whole deal was about, is people fucking with your autonomy and not wanting, not validating your own emotion, not validating the integrity of your emotions, you know. And I explored that a little bit. Like the guy that was doing that last night, if he was in my situation, he'd be in jail. If he put up with what I put up with in this building, and he's telling me to mellow out on the hate, it's like, all right, man. But yeah, I made it. So I already um, made a video last night, fresh off the phone call where I was angry, and then I wanted to analyze it a little bit and figure out what it was really about, and what really all my interactions like that, where everyone in my family and my inner circle of people, they're always wanting to play devil's advocate. They even play devil's advocate with my health, where they're like, I mentioned that the other day where I had somebody tell me like, I was like, I could be dead like at any moment when I was having the heart trouble thing, and they were like, well, That could be said of any of us. We could be crossing the street and get hit by a car. It's like, that's not relevant. Oh, I look both ways, first of all. And second of all, you're talking to me as a healthy person, telling me, why are you playing devil's advocate with my health situation? Or like, why are you playing devil's advocate with a landlord? And I'm going to title this, I guess, Just a Slumlord, because that's the phrase that's stuck in my head the most. Like, it's like, why are you so filled with hate and anger? He's just a slumlord, you know. And then I go into explaining that that phrase is oxymoronic and just plain moronic because slumlords ruin people's lives. And yeah, so I'm going to cobble this together and try to make it of a reasonable length. I'm thinking maybe 35, 40 minutes. Um, but yeah, that was my original plan, was just to scrap last night's rant and then take a more measured approach to it and figure out what was really going on. And that's what's really going on, is like you're kind of getting gaslighted about your own emotions by people that are supposed to love you. Like, like I mentioned in the following mishmash, I mentioned like somebody actually said, "What exactly have these people done to you anyway?" And I was like, besides threatening my life openly, like multiple times, and this is a very intelligent person saying this shit, and it's like what happened to like unqualified support? What happened to uh, like I can see criticism, like if it's like you kind of like need to look at yourself in this situation. But what exactly was I doing as far as the landlord situation, except for being a crazy dumbass and staying here? Um, what? How are you gonna say, how are you gonna minimize that guy's behavior when he has a Breaking Bad episode going on in my building for like months, where it's like a Breaking Bad thing. It's literally, I'm living in the middle of Breaking Bad because there's a meth cookhouse across the street. There's a meth operation in the building, and he's going to tell me that the guy's just a slum lord, and I should mellow out on my hatred toward him. So, anyways, um, yeah, I don't want to. I got some editing to do, and I don't want to make this any longer than it needs to be because your time is valuable. But yeah. Mm. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if any of you people experience that, where it's like you got people questioning the validity of your own emotions, and there are people that are loved ones. It's like that's really what that was about. It's like the person said um, they just didn't like the idea of me feeling so much hate, having hated so much themselves, and that's all explained in the following. So without further ado, let's go to the editing and the mishmash to follow. It's going to start out with the rant and then with the video that I made this morning, just like little snippets of it, so it's not redundant, because I covered what happened with the rant in the video this morning, but I'm going to just take out little pieces of it. Anyways, see you in approximately a nanosecond. Uh, just a slumlord. What does that expression mean, even? So, anyways, like, uh, my family does this thing where they play devil's advocate. They don't like believe in support, like unqualified support. they play devil's advocate even when the devil's involved. Like, I actually had somebody in my family, in my inner circle, on the side of the guy who sprayed me with poison. Um, so I just had this conversation, and somebody used that phrase, just a slumlord. And I'm like, if you were living here, you would have already killed the guy. You know, because I know the guy. Like, you already killed the guy. He'd probably be in jail. You know, and this is somebody that's ruined your loved one's health. That's let a flourishing meth trade in your building, had exterminators spray your loved one with poison and stuff. And what he said specifically is, his basic point is that I should just let it go. I shouldn't be hateful. You know, I shouldn't allow myself to be poisoned with hate. And I'm like, listen, we have a person in common, and I did not hate that person. You hated that person. I never told you don't hate that person for such and such reason. But man, that just a slumlord, like, that's like, you have any idea how many, how I bet you my story, if this guy owns over 30 properties, how often my story has been repeated, how many me's there are out there in the world that got their lives fucked up by this just a slumlord dude. And it's like, most of them, that people that would come into the building that were good people, like, he brought in some tenants from that were more or less ringers to put over top of me after the hood people left. And they had a little tiny child, like 4 or 5 years old. Um, and at the same time, literally, the door is like, I can actually touch one door with one arm and touch the other door with the other arm. In the other place, he moves in a guy who's like a 3-time loser for breaking and entering and a drug addict, and the guy that started up the meth business. So obviously, the nuclear family that was living up there, that were the upstanding citizens, they didn't hang around too long. So at the very least, he inconvenienced them, you know. And the guy's a lying sociopath, the just a slumlord guy. So he said, well, they just wanted to move in here because the rent was cheap, and they were saving moving in a house. He's like, well, they must have, uh, they moved so fast and they were here for such a short time, they must have saved up the money. It's like, no, they just got the fuck out of Dodge, because they had drug sales, like, right next to where their 4 or 5 year old kid was living, you know. And man, that conversation irked me, and I kept everything on the DL as far as, like, who I'm talking about and what I'm talking about. But it's like, that one time I really couldn't believe it is when, like, this person is you know supposed to love me, but they're taking they just like to play devil's advocate. I mean, if it was the actual devil poking me with a pitchfork, they would be like, well, he was just trying to help you out by poking you with the pitchfork. He was trying to steer you in one direction or another, and he didn't really mean he didn't really mean to, like, uh, throw those hot coals on top of your head. You know, he was just getting his barbecue ready to cook some people steaks while he was in hell. But anyways, um, so yeah, I got really irked, man. I mean, I didn't hold back, and the conversation usually would have went south at that point. But um, the individual in question's been doing really well, um, emotionally, so they handled it a little better, but that shit really gets old. Really gets old, man. It's like, I actually brought that up with somebody that was a female member of the family, where I'm like, oh, so we're not going to do the unqualified girlfriend support thing here, you know? It's like, because she said, like, there's some kind of girlfriend code that, of course, I know nothing about, where, like, if they're bitching about a boyfriend, it's like you never take up for the boyfriend. It's like, oh, he's a dog. You know how he is, you know. Like, yeah, girl, I understand, you know. I was like, so we're not doing that, huh? Yeah, and I actually had her cut me off in conversation and say, because I was like, I'm sorry I interrupted you. I just want to finish my thought. And she goes, no, because you're just going to go back and talk about this, this, and this, and this. And I'm like, no, actually, I wasn't going to talk about that at all, and you're not Nostradamus. Is that right? Nostradamus? Nostradamus? I don't know. This kind of thing upsets me, man. You know, it really upsets me. The blind spots that these people have too. You know, it's like you got no idea. You know what I've been through in this building, and you couldn't have stood it. And you're telling me not to hate on somebody, and I listened to you hate on this other person, and I didn't hate them. But I never told you not to hate them or told you that you didn't, you know, that it's bad for you. But it all started when I said I was going to spray paint something on the walls. And I just think maybe they jumped to the conclusion that I was going to just vandalize the place. I'm like, no, there's going to be specific reasons for, you know, and explaining to them what they were. Like I was going to spray paint, like, you know, the Maslin PD knows that there was a thriving meth trade here, and I was going to put the Sergeant Smith guy's card on the wall when I left here and say, you know, call this guy and ask him about it if he knows about it, you know. And then I was going to, the letter that I got from my neighbor that moved that said that he moved specifically to protect his children because of the continuous drug activity at this, and I listed the address, and it even has his phone number on it. And I was just going to leave that taped to the wall and spray paint. I can get plenty more of these anytime I want to. And I was also had ideas which involve, um, yeah, they're kind of complicated. But I'm like, no, it's like, if that happened, the guy that I was talking to, if that happened to you, there would be violence done already. I mean, and you're telling me just to just let it go, you know. It's like, man, ugh. Why do people got to be like that? It's like you got a fucking blind spot there, and they're like, no, I just don't like to see somebody that I care about suffering, you know, with that kind of hate in them, and you know, and all that. I'm like, have you been oblivious to like the last, I don't know, 10 years, 11 here, and because I brought up like I brought it up because I got tired of talking about TV shows. I mean, all I do is watch TV anyway. Can't do a whole hell of a lot else. So, um, I brought up the fact that I just yelled at people for my New Year's Eve, or for my on New Year's Eve, because I had that reply email to the boat guy where I was like, why would I want to have anything to do with anybody in your household? You know, and he just kept that to himself apparently because they sent the war vet knocking on my door with sauerkraut and pork from his grandma, which is the woman that got me accidentally, I hope, addicted to Xanax, and then I was buying them off her, and then she got dropped, you know, that whole thing. So, anyways, so he's pounding the fuck out of my door. I'm in bed, and I'm like, I don't give a fuck who that is. And then he pounds on my window over here. I open the window. He's back at the door, pounding at the door. He's clearly drunk, and he's like, "I'm just doing an errand here. I got some sauerkraut, and some pork for you." And I'm like, I'm like, who in the fuck is knocking on my door, and what the fuck do you want? And he's like, I'm just running an errand. He's like, my grandma wanted you to have like some sauerkraut and some pork. And I'm like, I don't even like that shit, man. And he goes, well, like, you just open the door so I can talk to you. And I'm like, I don't want to talk to fucking anybody. And then I was like, if that's not money, I don't want it. And he's like, well, I can give you some money. And I'm like, you don't owe me any money. Isn't entirely true. He did break my Browns mug. Still promised me $20 for that. And plus, he took football cards off of me, but I'm not arguing with somebody drunk about stuff they don't even remember. I got a key to his apartment. He probably don't even remember giving it to me, but I got a key to his apartment that he wanted me to keep for him. But he's not even bringing that shit up. But this, the final thing he said to me was a sarcastic, well, thank you. Like, and then, obviously I don't reason with drunken people, and I'm not going to be like, what are you thanking me for? Are you thanking me for the 50-inch TV? Are you thanking me for the PS2 with the 21 games to it, or however many games? Or are you thanking me for the bass boat that I had put in your name? I mean, what exactly are you thanking me for here? You know, it's like then I got on email and I was like, I wrote the boat guy, and I'm like, what? Oh, no, why send a drunken Chris here with food to pound on my door, and no question mark? And I'm like, that's not a question. And so he chooses to answer the question after I say it's not a question. I don't even read the email. He was just like, I didn't do that. I didn't know anything about that. Because they don't communicate in that household. It's like nobody knows what the fuck. It's a fucking, it's there's no therapy that's gonna fix what's ever going on in that household. It's not possible. Um, But anyways, I didn't even read the guy's email. I don't give a fuck about the boat guy or my foster brother anymore. I don't care. I like to have real conversations. Not that he's talking about various, fishing lures that he got off of my old fishing buddy. And then, because he cleaned out one of his tackle boxes and found some antique fishing type lures. Then I'm talking about TV shows because I'm fascinated with this Black Mirror show. Then I'm like, let's try talking about something real. So real things that happened in our lives. And, and I'm like, man, you're just like everybody else in the family. He's like, no, I'm not. I'm like, sure you are. It's like, there's no such thing as unqualified support. It's like, you have no idea how evil this guy is. He's like, he's just a slumlord. Like, that's a small thing. It's like, it just really aggravated me. I mean, of course, I'm in benzo withdrawal, so I'm more likely to be aggravated in it. But the logic behind it is what's aggravating. It's like slumlords ruin people's lives, man. I mean, I ran through it, and I'm like this. And he compared it to uh, my buddy who rents out, who's just super cheap, and fixes stuff himself. And like, he's the guy that moved the refrigerator when he was 65, and I'm like you got six-figure income, and just call someone, let younger dudes lift the refrigerator. But anyways, I was like, that's not the same thing, because that guy would never allow a flourishing drug trade in the building. And I'm like, I was getting my life threatened. I was like having people living right next to me, and this guy was trying to minimize this shit. like that's gonna like lower my hatred. And his whole thing was like, well, I don't like to see anybody I care about like suffering, and like that hate stuff eats at you. And I'm I brought up, like I said, him hating this other person. And I'm like, I never like said that you shouldn't hate them, and like I never took that person's side. And you know, I reminded him, he glossed over that, but I reminded him about like the whole thing about like when the squatters were up there that were threatening my life and stuff, that I was going to try to get rid of them by squirting liquid ass underneath their door, but they would have known that I would have done it, and it would just exacerbated the situation. But he was like, "That's a terrible thing to do, man. You'll wreck the wood. And that smell will never get out of there." And I'm like, okay, the landlord's an evil, satanic, money grubbing, soulless fuck, and the people that are living there are threatening my life. Now, why should I give a fuck about some wood that, the wood is no longer a living thing, it's dead. This is the kind of rationality I have to deal with. And, yeah, okay. So, alright, rant done. Done with that. Okay, so that was the rant from last night. And shortly, I wasn't going to post that. So I was going to like tell you about it in a video I made this morning, but shortly I'll put that video up. But I got something to tell you that happened while I was doing all this, which is my case manager from CareSource called up, and she said, I'm due for a visit. And I'm like, well, today's not going to be a good day because I got those aid workers coming in here in around 2:15. And she was like, perfect, I want to be there because I want to talk to them. And she was going on about how it's their job, you know, to keep this place clean and livable, safe environment. Meanwhile, the bathroom is trashed. It hasn't been cleaned in God knows how long. The bedroom's all fucked up, because I don't let these people work. And half the time I just send them out of the house because I'm just irritated by their presence because, I don't know, benzo withdrawal. And a kind of interesting thing sort of happened, which was she confided in me that she occasionally takes Xanax. Now, where she gets the Xanax, I don't know. But I'm starting to have my suspicions. Because she was bucking me real hard about, like, well, CareSource is paying for that agency, and I want to make sure that they're doing their jobs. And she wasn't taking no for an answer. And I'm like, look, I tell them people not to work. And she said, that doesn't matter. That's their job, And she was like stonewalling me. And I'm like, look, I'm a big 6'1" guy with a lot of upper body strength. And if I tell them not to work, they're not going to work, you know. And she's still going on. But then I'm like I won't say her name, but I said her name, and I said, look, I understand, that you take Xanax occasionally. We've talked about that. And she goes, yeah. And I'm like, well, I'm benzo dependent, like everyday dependent. And a lot of times I don't want to hear a bunch of rattling around and a bunch of noise with those people cleaning, because I didn't want to get anybody in that agency in trouble, but she was bound and determined. If she would have came here at the same time the aid worker came here and seen that this place was fucking trashed like it is, she's going to come down on them when it's really me not telling them what to do. And that's what I kept telling her. But a little bit of blackmail I think I used there, because I don't know where she's getting those Xanax, if she had them prescribed to her and she's just holding on to them, but she'll be like, yeah, I'll take take them for like 2 or 3 days at a time. And I'll be like, no, you don't want to fuck with that stuff. And we had conversations about that, so I know that I don't know where she's getting the Xanax. But once I brought up the Xanax, Suddenly her tune changed and she was like, well, how about tomorrow then for your appointment? And I'm like, I hit a nerve. I don't know what that was about, but she was like real dogged about she was going to be here and it's all the agency has to clean and it's their responsibility. It's their job to clean your toilet for $10 a month or whatever. You know, the that she of course didn't say that, but then I mentioned her Xanax use, which may be illegal, and suddenly tomorrow was fine. Kind of interesting. Kind of interesting. Kind of makes me wonder about. Well, first of all, you grass don't grow on a busy street, man. You ain't dealing with your average motherfucker here. Like yeah, I remember things, and so I brought up that you know, you know, she would say that she would take them, and she would even feel it after a few days that she would feel a little bit on edge or whatever. And I'm like, you don't want to take that stuff. And then I told her like, well, I brought up her own use. And then I said, I'm benzo dependent, so a lot of times I don't want to hear a bunch of fucking noise in my house. But I didn't swear. I was like, I don't want to hear a bunch of noise, and I tell them, and then suddenly she's understanding. I was making this point the whole time that I'm the one telling them don't do shit in here. But suddenly, after I bring up her Xanax use, she's suddenly understanding, which makes me wonder where she is getting the Xanax. Interesting. So, she's like, oh, how about tomorrow? So, anyways, um, so I'll leave in a couple maybe of interesting parts of the video that I was going to make instead of posting the fresh off the phone video where I get tired of like people gaslighting my emotions or not validating them or wanting me to feel a different way about things or like playing devil's advocate with the devil. And I made an especially funny to me anyway scenario because I extrapolated on the barbecue thing that I'm definitely gonna leave in there. But anyways, this is long enough. I just wanted to tell you about that. It's like I play a little mind game there. Winner chicken dinner over here. But let's get back to the other nonsense. In the year 2020, will man still be alive? Was it in the year 2525 or something like that? Somebody like Zedgar and Evans. I don't know. It's just yeah. You want to be spontaneous. Uh, you can't be looking stuff up on Google and preparing a performance. But so I was spontaneous last night because I got off the phone pissed off, and then I did a little rant on here to blow off that steam, and I got to thinking about the other thing that I made where I talk about public authenticity. Can it be done? But is it a good idea to put too much of yourself out there? Like, I don't have a problem with that, but putting other people out there, and if you put too much of yourself, what if you're not putting out your interactions with other people? What is that really telling people about you, anyways? About your thoughts about the color purple? You know, I mean, I don't know if you can follow that or not. Let me see if I can. I don't know if I can follow that. Let me see if I can break that down a little differently. If I'm not talking about other people and my interactions with them, what exactly is there to talk about besides like my ideas about things like, oh, this is a good movie, I this, I that, I. That really shows who you are is how you interact with other people. But then if you put that on the internet, you're putting other people that maybe don't want to be on the internet. You can try to keep them as anonymous as possible, but if you make 200, between 250 and 280 videos, and kind of like hard to be camouflaging other people that way, piece it all together. So I don't know. I was gonna put up just like the first 12 minutes rant about it, but what it was about is like really nobody in my inner circle is willing to just let me experience my own feelings without trying to manipulate that somehow, you know. They always got to play devil's advocate for the person that I'm angry with or that I have a problem with, to the point of absurdity, to where I had somebody defending the guy who sprayed me in the face with poison. That's supposed to be somebody who loves you. I even said to that person once, I was like, so we're not going to do like the girlfriend thing, because we had talked about that previously. Like, I understand there's a girlfriend code where, like, girlfriend's complaining about her boyfriend, the girlfriend never takes the boyfriend's side. She never speaks up in favor of the boyfriend. Not well people that are not well emotionally. You're supposed to love me. You're not supposed to take up for somebody that took a big chunk of my sanity and health and made me actually live in an episode of Breaking Bad where I'm, living in a house that's part of an entire meth operation. And the guy knows about it and does nothing about it. And then I and benzo withdrawal have to be like crippled Batman, phrase I've used on there before, and like confronting people with machetes, calling the police, trying to get something done about this. And then I'm like pushing the landlord to get these fuckers out of here once they've squatted. I even told the police that's just leftover meth trash. And I was like, about the situation, right? And they're like, listen, we know all about that. Which clues me into the fact that they couldn't do nothing about it. They couldn't do nothing to the landlord. So for me to go at them, the landlords around here, I don't know if it's like that everywhere, they have so many rights that they can actually know about a meth operation running in their building and just la 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 skip down the street merrily collecting money that's made off of meth sales. I still can't believe that. Now I read up on it. I got on websites about the issue, and I'm like, they've recently passed laws in this city where the landlord can be held responsible for criminal activity on his building, but only if the police have a warrant, go into the building. If they would have had a warrant, went into the building and found substance and then confronted the landlord about it, and then the landlord did nothing, then the landlord would be liable if it could be proven that he had knowledge that was going on. But the police understood that was the situation. I mean, they were actually, I was telling my best friend, the cop, that the cops would actually be coming here just looking for random criminals, because this was like the hub of criminal activity in the neighborhood. Which, skipping all that ancient history, it's like, and this guy is using the phrase just a slumlord. It's like, guy's a fucking monster. He's like, don't you understand, that the guy owns 30 properties. How many good people have been put through the torture that I've been put through? Probably not many, because they just bounced. They realize it and they bounce. They have the resources Me, I didn't have the resources financially, interpersonally, and I was in benzo withdrawal, so I was in a not altered like consciousness to where I was like, um, you know, I ain't leaving. I'm watching you people leave. It just doesn't even make any sense now that I'm a little bit more. Now that I only take Xanax to go to dental appointments when they're gonna do stuff to my teeth. But I was like, nope. You threaten me. You make my life hell. Or like I'm staying here and I'm gonna win. What did I win? Where's my prize? You know, I got like that in the head. Like it's like, you threaten my life, man. I ain't leaving. I'm watching you leave. And it got to be like, that when you get older, time gets more precious. So, so that's 7 months flushed because of just because of stubbornness and just because of that attitude. But in June, when it really everything just blew up in here, is when I was taking the least amount of Xanax and I was tapering the hardest. And then July was the machete month, and then August was the squatter month. And stuff had been going on previous to that, and then there was the fallout from all of that. Um, so, but yeah, I mean, I'm like, you're just like everybody else, and they're like, I'm not just like everybody else, and I'm like, well, you're you're playing like, you're minimizing that and realizing like he was like, well, I just care about you, and I don't want to see you. I know what it is to hate like that. And I said, yeah, and I know what you're talking about, and I know, and I didn't hate that person, but I never invalidated your hatred of them. It's like I never told you how to feel. I never told you like don't hate that person. You know, I'm not in good brain at the moment, but yeah. He said just open the door. I just want to talk to you. And I'm like, I don't want to fucking talk to anybody. You know. And he's been really good about that because after I got out of the hospital on September 17th, and he pounded on my door, and then he pounded on the guy next to me's door, wheelchair guy Roy's door, asking about me. I opened the window when he's sitting outside, and he made a joke about me being in the hospital, and I threw 20 at him, and I said, don't knock on my door. And when I want to see you, I'll come out and see you. That was, he's been, so he doesn't knock on my door, which has been cool, except for last night he wanted to for whatever reason. He had some food, some kind of peace offering or something from people that the only thing they want out of me is money. So he sarcastically said, I was like, I don't want to fucking talk to anybody. Then I don't remember what else was said. But the last thing he said as I was walking back toward the bedroom was, thank you. And then it pops in my head to say, what are you thanking me for? Are you thanking me for the 50-inch TV I gave you? Are you thanking me for the PS2 with the 19 games? Are you thanking me for the boat? Are you thanking me for the hours that I spent with you playing therapist and keeping you company? What are you thanking me for? But I'm like, I'm not engaging no alcoholic when they're drunk. It's just stupid. That one time I remember I opened the door for him when he was drunk. The next thing I know, I gotta throw him out of my house because he wants to bring his girlfriend and have their little psychodrama in my house. It's like, no, lesson learned. Not that I haven't had experience dealing with drunks before, but just like I thought I could manage that into a briefer interaction. That's what it was. He was asking me. He needed to use my phone because he lost his phone on the porch, which he didn't know where he lost his phone at, but it was actually sitting right beside the little mini ramp going outside, right beside the. He was just drunk and dropped it, or who knows? Maybe he stashed it there to have an excuse to. Who knows? I don't know. You know, I've been surrounded by crazy, intoxicated, uh, inebriated, high, stoned, and stupid people my whole life. So who the fuck knows? I don't even speculate on that shit anymore. So, that's how that went. That was my New Year's, because I'm not doing anything. I'm going to do anything for New Year's. That's what my older cousin says in Florida. He's like, asked him how his Christmas was, and he says, Christmas is just another day, man. My birthday, just another day, man. New Year's, just another day, man. That's what he always says about everything. So, anyways, I pop off an email to my foster brother, and I'm like, why did your mom send Christopher? Yeah, send Chris down here with food and have him pounding on my door and windows. Then I left no question mark, and then I wrote explicitly, not a question. So he answers the question and sends me a reply email, which I'm not getting it. I didn't even read it, and I'm not going to read it. I don't want nothing to do with the dude. But I said some like truth, but passive aggressive type of way. It's like, why the fuck are you living? Everybody wonders that though. It's like, why do you think you owe her? Why are you like slavishly devoted to somebody that treated you like that abandoned you? That's how you became my foster brother. Everybody wonders that anyway. So I was like, I was like, I feel like I failed you, and I went through the history of our lives. We got a whole like 50-year history together, which is why it was really difficult to snip that cord, despite the fact that he broke the 70 times 7 rule in forgiveness by about 30. All the crap that he's done, and I wrote, like, I did try, like he broke up with one of his girlfriends, and I'm like, oh, why don't we just get a place together? And because we did that when we were younger, and when we were younger, I was living, the thing of it is like separating from your family is healthy and normal. There's even like some cliche or that a healthy family disintegrates gradually and naturally. Everybody like pulls apart, has their own lives. There's no enmeshment, and they use these words, in the psychological groups and whatnot. You're not wrapped up in your family's business. It's just natural for people go off and live their own lives, and you have the right to do that as a autonomous human being. And he never got away from his mom's thrall, and like I don't know how old he was when we were like 21 or something like that when we're both living at our sister's house. I'm like, we're too old to be living at our sister's house. Let's get a place together. And then I did the work there. Got an apartment. It lasted for a whole 11 months because dude was spending too much of my money and not being a responsible person, and with the marijuana. Now my alarm goes off. Great. Yeah, I had the alarm set. I forgot to turn it off. I forgot I was already awake. Now I forgot completely what I was talking about because I just had a massive coughing fit, and I'm uncomfortable. But I'm always uncomfortable, so I was talking about independence, how everybody has a right to their own life, and like a healthy family disintegrates slowly and naturally and goes off, and ideally people go about, they have their own life, and then they interact with their family in healthy ways that don't involve codependent enmeshment and all those phrases that psychologists and whatnot use. Is there anything I can do about? I never get good lighting in here. Whatever. This time of day is bad. It's 9:50. I'm gonna get all this light into this blind. But anyways, I was in the email that I wrote him because he's the only one I'm not calling their house number. I assume it hasn't changed. I'm not calling them and talking to them. I don't have the phone number or the email to the war veteran alcoholic. I don't have anybody's. That's the only way I can contact him is through the house phone or the email. So I wrote that email. And I said that I kind of failed you as an older brother because I'm a little bit older than him. Because, you're still stuck with, you went back and you lived with your mom. And then I remember circumstances where he would have I don't think they would have been lasting relationships, but you cannot have a lasting relationship if you live with your mom and then the person moves in the house with your mom and you're fucking in the same house that your mom is living in. It should be like, it ain't rocket science to figure out that that's a doomed relationship, but people waste their lives how they want to waste their lives, and he's entitled to his own feelings. That's how I started this shit out, was, like this guy like trying to soften my hatred by using the phrase just a slumlord. That's the way he wants to live his life. That's the way he wants to live his life. I can only try to like steer him in a sensible direction. You, but anyways, he was living away from his mom for a while, and I think he lived like twice at girlfriends' places. But he was living with this little hobbit, not really a hobbit, not built like a hobbit, pixie. I don't know. She was only like 4'9" or something like that. A real tiny person. Had these little tiny shoes. I remember holding up one of her shoes and like marveling at it, like, it's like ridiculous. Um. Anyways, he breaks up with her. I've been just stagnating, not knowing how healthy and happy I actually was, because, you know, nervous system is wired to compare situations. Or like, okay, there's a lot of pressure being put on my hand now. That's different than what my hand was before. It's like when you have nothing to compare it to, or there's no change, I didn't understand, like, okay, I'm actually stagnated at that place, but I have money to spend. My cardio is outrageous. I'm crazy strong. I'm strong enough to lift up and cast iron bathtub, at least one end of it, um, and work out with 40 pound plus dumbbells. Um, I'm fine, but he had broken up with her, and I was like, well, why don't we get a place together? And he's like, no, I'm gonna go back and live with my mom. And I'm like, why? You know, and he's like, well, I'm kind of paying her bills anyway, so I might as well be living there. And then my next question would have been, why are you paying her bills? But I didn't bother because the guy has a right to live his own life the way he wants to live it. But I wrote him last night. I was like, I feel like I failed you. And I told him like he had a right to his own life, and you still do. But now it's kind of too late. Because of his mom's bad health, he would really feel some kind of guilt. You know, he used the phrase, I couldn't do that to my mom. I was like, why the hell not? She did that shit to you, is what I'd be thinking, but I would never say it. Still ain't right. bad coughing fit when I got up. But yeah, that shit last night pissed me off. And it's like I had a funny thought, like a funny little video in my head. Got that expression, devil's advocate, because whenever I have like a situation like getting sprayed with poison, or I remember this is actually true, as hard as this will be to believe, but I was complaining about the squatter situation to somebody, and they said, well, what have these people actually done to you? And I'm like, do you mean besides threatening my life? I mean, literally threatening my life verbally. You know, it's like they would actually play. This is the video in my head that I had. They would actually play devil's advocate with the actual devil. If the devil was like, if I said, the devil popped up in my room the other night and he started hitting me with a baseball bat, uh, they would be like, but what really was the devil's intention? Do you think he really meant to hit you with the baseball bat? I was going to use a pitchfork in that, you know. They'd be like, I'd be like, well, the devil poured hot coals on my head, and he's like, well, they'd be like, well, maybe it was an accident. He was just trying to clear out his barbecue before he made more human steaks for hell. You know, 'cause I think in hell, like with Prometheus and the way the vulture would eat his liver and then his liver would regrow. That there's if you want to, I don't believe any of this nonsense, of course, but you can get chopped up in hell and made into steaks and cooked and marinated and then reassembled, and that's somebody's hell that really hated the barbecue scene where you have to sit around and drink a beer and make conversation. They would have to be in the barbecue, but they would be being served at the barbecue as conscious little steaks. And yes, I am a twisted motherfucker, but you have to remember that I used to write and that I can come up with this kind of crap. That yeah, I ain't the most. I ain't saying I ain't no. I ain't saying I'm a genius when it comes to imagination, but I can come up with some shit. But anyways, yeah, I was like, they would play devil's advocate with the actual devil, where I was concerned. What are these people exactly doing to you? It's like, well, the guy didn't really mean to spray you in the face with poison. I'm like, yeah, I kind of know that, but it kind of still fucking made me sick. And it really wasn't about that anyway. It was about my landlord's reaction to the whole thing. The way he was like scolding me for saying the word fuck to his exterminator. I don't like the way you treated my exterminator, because I pushed him out of the way and said, get the fuck out of my way. I was like, if I was 20 years younger and you didn't like the way I treated your exterminator, you would definitely not like the way I would have treated you in that hallway. Which, I still have that old phone here, I think somewhere with the text on it. But I just said 20 years ago. I said, you have no idea what went down in that hallway 20 years ago. ... Because you don't spell out things. And then later on, of course, him, and I've said this before, him and the exterminator ganged up on me, and the exterminator was like, Gerald told me about you leaving him in a pool of blood. I'm like, that's really not me. I would never use that expression. I'm going to leave you in a pool of blood, because I'm hot-blooded. I'm not cold-blooded, when it comes to violence. It's like, because I know violence is stupid. I know fighting is stupid. It doesn't mean I don't have it in me. It just means if you piss me off to a certain point, or if I feel like I need to, I will grab your arm, and I will get you in an arm bar, and I will make you feel it the next day. Or if it gets nuclear, like it did when I got sprayed in the face with poison, I will beat you until one of us is hurt really, really bad. And in that case, it would have been that guy, because that guy didn't understand the situation. So I would have had first strike. I would have had a menu set before me, a menu of violence, and I'd be like, See, leg takeout, body slam to the ground, land on him with all my weight. Hopefully, knee to the crotch as a side dish. Elbow smash to the face. You know, waiter, and could you bring me a glass of water to spit out the blood afterwards? You know, it would have been like that. But I would never say anything like, I'm not stupid. I'm not going to spell out a threat. You know, I was stupid enough to say that, I will wreck the exterminator's life just to spite you, which I had no intention of doing anyway. I mean, it was an accident, and you know, I didn't like the way the guy acted, but that's old news. If you want to hear that story, you can go back in the videos and check out Poison and sit through that. But yeah, that shit really makes me angry. It's like, what? How about a little unqualified support? How about allowing me to write that, have my own emotions, and not try to like manipulate me out of if feelings that are making you uncomfortable? It's not about you, And then I'm thinking about, this is a guy got a worse temper than me and a hotter temper than mine. I'm like, man, I said, you don't even know what you're talking about. I'm like, that guy would probably already be. You probably would. What did I say to him? I don't remember what I said exactly, but the gist of it was, that guy would already be dead if you were in my shoes, because he's got a worse temper than me, and oh God, would he? The landlord would have zero chance against him. Zero. He'd have a chance. With me, I'm all crippled up, but he'd have zero chance with that guy. I'm talking jail time. I gotta take something from my head. See, my last dose of Valium was 5 p.m. yesterday. It's 10 a.m. That's 17 hours. So I should probably do that. That's not how you quit. Benzos, as far as I can tell, is you quit by dropping the dose down. You don't quit by like, oh, I'm just not going to take them. I tried that when I didn't know what I was doing with Xanax, where I'd be like, oh, I even have a video on here called Heart versus Taper, because I would not take the Xanax until my heart would act up. I thought that was the way you do it, is you stretch out your doses. But the way you do it is you keep on a schedule, and you just keep dropping the doses and dropping the doses until they get further and further and off in the distance until they disappear over the horizon. Well, I guess this is the end of the video because I got somebody bothering me on the phone now. Goodbye. I'll talk to you soon. Aha, so you're seeing me much sooner than you would have thought. Well, this is the last thing chronologically, since this is all mashed together, of different clips from the past 2 days. This is the last. Chronologically, it is 1:47. Be about a half an hour until I have to deal with the aid worker coming in here. And that mishmash I just made, including fully conscious human steaks at a barbecue, of somebody who hates barbecues, but every day that's his punishment, via Prometheus style. Yeah, I just had to say, I originally thought that would be much shorter, but there was no way to edit it to where I could get any kind of continuity, and that's usually what happens. And of course, there's repeats in it, of course. And even this goodbye is a repeat. So I just wanted to say that I did have my best intentions at the beginning of the video when I said I was going to try to make it short, but I usually can't accomplish that. My batting average is around the Mendoza line when it comes to when I say I'm going to try to keep this short. And for those non-baseball fans, the Mendoza line was named after, I think, a guy named Mendoza, but it's the batting average of 200. 300 is a good or great batting average, depending upon other things. 275 is pretty good. 250 is acceptable. 200 you can get away with if you're a great fielder, but you go below the Mendoza line, you're probably going to the minor leagues, so they come up with this expression, the Mendoza line. I have to look that up to see if there was a guy named Mendoza that got cursed with his mediocrity being memorialized in an expression. You know, like I've been lobbying for, this is really a sick segue, but I've been lobbying for Cosby, for roofing somebody. That I want that to become part of the lexicon because I don't want people to forget that Bill Cosby, like that poor girl, she got Cosby'd, because I just saw a show about that where it was part of that You program on Netflix where this guy was roofing women and younger, like teenagers and stuff. And I thought about that again. It's like that's probably not gonna, I can't make that catch on, but yep, he Cosby'd her. But I want that to be his legacy because of what he did. And that is a very bizarre way to end any video. And yeah, I have my best intentions, but when it comes to brevity, brevity may be the soul of wit, Mr. Shakespeare, but brevity ain't the soul of me. This is a real goodbye. Until 2 or 3 days later when I come to trouble your doorstep once more. Goodbye.